Hello, everyone. Today we will have Dr. Robert Zubrin with us. We'll be speaking about Mars, why it is important for humans to go to Mars, what are some problems with it, can we solve it, and he's been a very influential figure in Mars exploration and Mars research. Almost everybody on our channel would know his name and what he has done, but just to give a little recap, he's an American aerospace engineer, and he has written so many books about Mars and Mars exploration, and he's been an ardent advocate for human exploration of Mars. And actually, they have written a very influential study, or a paper, I guess we could call it, titled The Mars Direct, which has been, with a few differences here and there, has been adopted by NASA to guide their Mars research. So without further ado, I'll just get Dr. Zubrin here. Hello again, Dr. Zubrin. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's very special to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. So I know I've watched so many interviews of you, so many speeches of you, and your energy is what really captivates me when I watch you explain why we should go to Mars. And I know you have explained this many times, but please, for us, can you give a recap? Why do we need to go to Mars? Why not the moon? Why not Europa, maybe, but Mars? What's so special about it?
Well, there's three reasons. It's for the science, for the challenge, and for the future. Okay, first of all, the science. Mars, the early Mars was very much like the early Earth. It was a warm, wet planet with a carbon dioxide atmosphere, liquid water on its surface, lots of rocks and minerals, and life appeared on Earth virtually as soon as it was cool enough for liquid water. So did it appear on Mars as well? In other words, is the origin of life from chemistry a highly probable process, or were we just lucky that we got life and we got it immediately, essentially, as soon as Earth was habitable, it was inhabited? Or, were we 1 in a million, or were we a sure bet? And this is the key to understanding the truth about the potential prevalence and diversity of life in the universe. And we can find this out by exploring Mars. You're not going to find out anything like that by going to the moon. The second is the challenge. I think that societies are like individuals. We grow when we challenge ourselves. We stagnate when we do not. And Humans to Mars program would be a tremendous, positive, bracing challenge for our society, in particular for the youth. It would say to every young person, learn your science and you can be a pioneer of new worlds. And out of that, we would get millions of young scientists, boys and girls, becoming scientists, engineers, inventors, doctors, medical researchers, technological entrepreneurs. These are the kinds of people that advance society. The United States benefited enormously from the Apollo project in that way, and it would benefit even more from a Humans to Mars program now. And the third is for the future, which is we're setting a direction for the future. If we do what we can do, which is establish that first little Plymouth Rock settlement on Mars, a few hundred people on Mars, then, 300 years from now, there will be millions of people on Mars. There will be new nations on Mars, new nations with new languages, new literatures, new political and social systems, heroic histories, innumerable contributions to science and technology and invention, and not just on Mars, but on thousands of planets orbiting stars in this region of the galaxy. Because what we're talking about is transforming humanity from a single planet to a multi-planet interstellar civilization. And as rich in comparison to what we have today as our current global society is, as our current global society is to our original condition as a group of tribes in the Kenyan Rift Valley. And so creating this vast interstellar civilization with all these qualities and contributions, this is something grand and wonderful and magnificent. And if you have it in your power to create something grand, wonderful, and magnificent, you should.
Definitely, and this is very convincing. But when you explain these to today's politicians, can you go any like do they listen to you? Do they take this seriously? Other than NASA's Mars Direct, is it possible to convince them to do these great things?
Well, look,
that you're talking about?
The Mars Society. We do three things. One is we just spread the vision. Second is we try to influence politicians to support government projects that relate to the exploration of Mars. And the third are projects of our own, such as our Mars Desert Research Stations. But spreading the vision is mobilizing forces, not only in the government, but outside the government. Okay. They help recruit Elon Musk to the cause, make Mars his calling, and now he's doing all kinds of things, and all sorts of other people. If we can convince them to devote their efforts to this, all sorts of talents will be put to work to make this happen. Now, as far as the government is concerned, the government as such has a hard time with this fully expansive vision. They do understand the idea of science. They understand the importance of doing Mars science and what this could mean both for abstract science and for practical science, because if we could discover life on Mars, we could find out fundamental things about biology, which has incredible potential applications to agriculture and medicine and biotechnology. And okay, so they understand that, and they're willing to support Mars exploration. On that basis. So we'll take what we can get from them. But, look, Ferdinand and Isabella funded Columbus based on the idea that they were going to get a new trade route to India. Okay. And later on, some people convinced the French and the British monarchs that they might find gold in America or something like this. Now, actually, the Spanish did find gold in America, and they took it from the people who had it. But that was not the real significance of the European colonization of America. What the real significance was, new nations were created, including mine, which, the United States has made all sorts of contributions to all sorts of areas, ranging from literature to technology. And this has been our contribution to the world, not, some gold that someone found in California.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's true. But it's also, there's a lot of naysayers about this too. Mars is a terrible planet to be in. It's all radioactive, this and that. There has been just a recent article in the Atlantic where they took a position against Elon Musk, where they're saying he's just selling a dream to propel his business forward. What do you say to these people? Like, how do you convince them?
There's two different things. There's resentment of Elon Musk as a person because he's very successful and so forth. And who likes people that are more successful than But the real issue is not animus towards Elon Musk, or even the writer's skepticism of the possibility of settling Mars, because no one's asking her to do it. There is an issue in that article which replicates something that Sagan once said in a ill-considered moment, where he said, if there's life on Mars, we should leave it alone. Mars should be for the Martians. Now that's actually not an ethical point of view. That's an anti-human point of view, preferring the interests of microbes to those of humans. And I think that Sagan just wasn't thinking through what he had to say there. But truly, humanist ethics is expanding the potential for human freedom, human civilization, and the community of life that we are the vanguard for. Okay, Earth life is to spread to Mars. Humans are the means that the biosphere has evolved to allow it to do so. And you might say we have an obligation to the rest of the community of life to play our part, because the raccoons can't do this. Not without our
hopefully
help. And, okay, now but look, you know what it really is, if you want to know, is people are taking the example of Western imperialism and on harming indigenous people, and they are making a mental transfer of that to humans going to Mars, and it's not appropriate. In fact, it's really wrong, because what was done to, for instance, the American Indians was wrong because they were people. And harming microbes is not the same thing as harming people. Okay.
I understand.
And so those are two different cases. And to say harming microbes is no different, harming people is no different than harming microbes is really a horrific point of view. And so I don't think Sagan meant it or really thought it through at all. The humanist ethics have to be based on benefiting humans. Now that includes helping nature. Okay, the Earth is a better planet for people if it has a rainforest in it. Okay, and so there's absolutely a place for preserving nature and natural beauty and wildlife and so forth within the concept of humanistic ethics. But for instance, do we have the right to exterminate the COVID virus? You bet we do. Okay. And I'm all in for anybody who's got a way to wipe that thing out.
Yeah, me too. And anybody who's sane would be for that too. And I think that's a fair point. And I think what people are missing is people like yourself. It's not like a childish dream that you're chasing. You thought through. You have plans, step by step, taking us to Mars, and it's like a big science and technology and engineering endeavor. It's not like I always wanted to go to Mars, so let's go to Mars type of thing. And I've watched your speeches about the plan, and I know you wrote a book about this, which was hugely successful. There you go. Yeah, there it is.
Here's the 25th anniversary edition. Okay.
How many years? Oh, 25th. Wow, congratulations. That's awesome.
And it has an endorsement from Elon Musk right on the cover.
Oh, man. You know what we should do? We should get that translated into Turkish. We got to get that going.
Yes, we should. Translated in Turkish and published in Turkey.
Yes, let's do that. I'll contact you about that, what we can do about it. But I want to our audience to understand your plan. Are you still sticking to the plan of taking 2 rockets every 2 years to Mars? That plan still stands, right? Can you explain us that plan?
Now you could modify it somewhat. Okay, but my basic Mars Direct plan was direct to Mars. Okay, no orbital infrastructure, no lunar infrastructure needed. Land on Mars with an Earth return vehicle, which makes its propellant on Mars, makes methane oxygen propellant out of carbon dioxide and water, which are both available on Mars. And now you have a fully fueled Earth return vehicle sitting, waiting for you on the Martian surface. Once that's done, you can shoot the Habitat craft out to Mars with the astronauts in it. They land near the Earth return vehicle. They use their habitat as their house on Mars for a year and a half while they explore. And then when they're done, they get in the Earth return vehicle, they fly it back to Earth. Okay, they leave the habitat behind on Mars. So each time you do this, you add another habitat to the base. Now, Musk has modified this a bit. He wants to fly to Mars in a Starship and then refuel that there out of methane and oxygen made from CO2 and water, and then fly back in that. You could do that. The Starship is kind of big, so you would need about 10 times as much propellant to do the mission that way as my way with a specialized Earth return vehicle. But for example, if Musk made a mini Starship, about 1/5 the size of the current model, something that would be about the right size to use as a reusable upper stage on a Falcon 9, that could be used as an Earth return vehicle from Mars, and you could pretty much fly the mission just, like I said, fly to Mars in a full-scale Starship, and now you've got a big, very big house on Mars. But
yeah,
why refuel such a large ship to come home? It's much more useful on Mars.
That's what I was going to ask. Is it, I don't know if you did the calculations, but is it more economical to send a huge Starship or say 5 smaller versions of it? Because
well, it all depends. Look,
yeah.
Look, Musk likes sending Starships because Musk's vision is colonization in the very near term. I go for a smaller vehicle because I think we're going to want to explore Mars some before we launch colonists. But you could do it either way. You know, the advantage of the small one is you could launch the small Starship fully fueled it as a payload of the large Starship to Earth orbit, and then it could just fly to Mars. And basically, you would use the mini Starship as basically 2 of them, one for the Earth return vehicle and one to send the astronauts out. You'd always have your return ride waiting for you on Mars, and you'd have your own ship as a back return vehicle. But you know, there's a number of ways one could design this. If you had big Starships, you have to refuel them in low orbit in order to get one to Mars, which takes at least 5 more Starship launches. And now you're sending this big ship to Mars. If you got it to Mars, it would be a tremendous asset on the surface, that's for sure. It's housing for 100 people, and it's got huge propellant tanks, so you could also use it as a propellant storage system as well. But it's essentially a liability for flying back such a large ship. In other words, if you've gone all this trouble to get a Starship to Mars, I would leave it on Mars and use a much smaller vehicle for return. On the other hand, if you want to do that, you do have to develop 2 vehicles, which is Musk's objection to that. He only wants to develop 1 flight system.
I see. And so it looks like in your plan too, there's room for bigger Starships as we go. Even if you start smaller, you can just expand in the future. And how about terraforming? You know, it keeps coming up in Mars discussions. Do we need to terraform the Mars to go there, or is it just down the line, or is it completely unnecessary in your point of view?
Well, terraforming Mars is going to happen because it is the nature of life to take barren environments and transform them into places that are friendly for the development of life. That is the history of life on Earth. That is why Earth is such a nice place. Life has terraformed the Earth. The Earth today does not at all resemble the Earth that life first appeared on. The oxygen in our atmosphere is an artifact of life. Okay, there was no free oxygen.
Toxic waste, right? Toxic waste.
The soil on the continents is a creation of life. Symbiotic communities of plants and animals have transformed. In fact, I guess there are mountains in Turkey, right? If you go hiking in the mountains, just look and see all those trees that go up the side of the mountain. How did they get there? Who put them there? Well, animals like chipmunks and squirrels transported the seeds up the sides of those mountains. And the seeds then took root and therefore expanded the habitat of those animals. The animals expanded their own habitat.
Good example.
We see this all around us. Okay, the animals that are successful expand their habitats. Animals that do not expand their habitats go extinct. So this is natural. Okay, so now the question of, do we need to terraform Mars in order to go to Mars? No, we can go to Mars as explorers and explore. We'll explore in spacesuits and create pressurized habitats, first just living in our spaceships, and then, creating large underground complexes comparable to metro systems, and we can create domes, we can do all this stuff. But eventually, the people living on Mars will want to improve their environment. This is what people do. It's what animals do. We improve our environment, okay? And therefore, once they have the capability of terraforming Mars, which they eventually will, because human technological capabilities are rising exponentially, they will terraform Mars. So we are not going to terraform Mars. The Martians are going to terraform Mars.
Wow. Yeah, that's a very cool way to look at it. So, but the bottom line is we don't have to terraform it to get to Mars. That's not a part of the plan. No. It's just going to come as an outside effect or a byproduct.
Well, it will come as a result of the exploration of Mars will lead to the establishment of permanent bases, which will lead to settlements, which will lead to cities and nations, and they will terraform Mars. They will, do what is necessary to make their world a better place.
Yeah, so it's not a barrier in front of us to go to Mars. That's what I'm trying to get at. No, okay. Right. And so just at that point, we when we talk about going to Mars, it's usually, people think it's humans, like human beings go to Mars. But when you are talking about it, yes, it is humans that is going to Mars, but there's a core element in there, the payload. Like, because humans are useless without the tools that they need to use to, as you said, terraform, or, they need a house, a shelter. So we should look at Mars exploration from, and all the technical challenges and stuff from a payload perspective. Is that correct?
Well, sure. You have to have the right tools for your environment, or more generally, you have to be able to take the materials that are in your environment and turn them into resources. Okay. There's no such thing as a natural resource. There's only natural raw materials. Okay. It is human technology, human creativity that turns raw materials into resources. Land was not a resource until people invented agriculture. Land was just something you had to travel over to get to where you wanted to go. It wasn't anything productive. We turned it into something that was a resource. Or you take mineral resources. The early civilizations in the Near East, they first used tools of copper and then bronze. And bronze is copper and tin, both of which are geochemically rare elements. Now, and this went on for thousands of years. And the metals were then extremely rare and could only be possessed by rich people. Now, in fact, it was people in your part of the world, the Hittites, who discovered how to create iron. Now, if you think about this, iron is thousands of times more common in the Earth's crust than copper is. Thousands of times, okay? And yet to the people before that, it was just dirt. And the only kind of metals there was copper and tin, and also gold and stuff. But in terms of a practical metal, it didn't exist. Okay, and then all of a sudden, by developing the kinds of technologies that could reduce iron ore to create iron metal, vast resources of metal appeared on the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so that went on for, I don't know, 2,000 years. And then guess what? In the 1800s, people discovered how to separate aluminum from aluminum oxide. Until the second part of the 1800s, aluminum oxide was just dirt.
Yeah.
And now in the 20th century, all of a sudden, aluminum becomes a metal in common use. All of a sudden, the Earth appears to have vast resources of aluminum, something that no one before that even knew existed. Okay. And it didn't exist until they had the technology to make it exist. And so here it is. You go to Mars, okay, and there's all kinds of stuff there. You have to develop the technology to turn that stuff into resources. And then the place becomes rich.
And that's the core of the innovation behind this idea. This whole planet sounds like, Mars is just like an intermediate. That's not the actual goal. And in one of your speeches, you say that too. It's just the beginning. It's not a final destination, right? So
that's right. It's not the destination. It's the direction.
It's a direction. Yeah. So, and while we try to figure those out, and I'm not trying to go into the technical details here since you don't have your slides and stuff, but your plan basically uses a lot of what's there right now in Mars and converting into useful stuff. But one thing you mentioned we can use water for turn it into fuel. Is there enough water that we can access to on Mars to convert it into fuel?
We now know that there are glaciers on Mars in the northern hemisphere, for example.
Would we have to land there?
Well, excuse me. There are glaciers as far south as 38 degrees north, which is south of Istanbul. It's about the same latitude as Athens on Earth. So you don't have to go to the pole to get it. It's right there in mid-latitudes where people might want to live.
Okay, that's not bad at all. It sounds like it's not bad at all. And and also when I look at your but in general the plan, the hardest part seems to be, and it's been common in rocket technology, space technology too, is to get stuff from Earth to the orbit. Do you think we will ever solve this problem by other means? Is heavy lift the best way to do this, or should we start investing in this?
Well, heavy lift can do it. And of course, that is what Musk is working on. And, the Starship uses methane oxygen, which is a very inexpensive propellant combination. Now, if you could get your oxygen from the atmosphere, like a jet does, so you only have to carry your fuel, the payload fraction would greatly increase. This is an advanced type of engine which has yet to be perfected, a hypersonic jet engine, but I think eventually it will be developed.
And there's all sorts of more advanced ways to do it, like a space elevator and things like that. We shouldn't bring too much these into the plan, should we? Is it a little too far away?
Well, a space elevator, which is a tether that is slung down from a satellite, and you try to climb it on a cable car. It's a very difficult thing to do on Earth because the Earth's gravity being what it is, the cable would have to be much stronger than any known material to make this an efficient system. Now, actually, it could be done on Mars or the Moon because their gravity is less. And it would be very advantageous in lifting payloads from the Moon or Mars to have space elevators there.
So it might be a part of this endeavor at one point, not on Earth, but maybe. Okay. Yes. So the thing is, we just land, NASA has just landed the Perseverance recently. So can we fairly say that we are now nailing down the landing part of this mission to Mars? Is it something that we should be concerned about? Or, can we say, yeah, I mean, if we can get there, landing won't be a huge trouble? Because in your plan, it requires landing in this circumference or an area over and over again to expand. So it's important to nail down that landing, right?
Well, yeah. Now, the Perseverance system, which is the Curiosity landing system, can land 1 ton on Mars. That's about 5 times as much as the previous landing system that landed Spirit and Opportunity. We need to take that up again, at least tenfold. To do human missions, we need to be able to land not 1 ton. We need to be able to land payloads in the 10-ton class. So it's going to take some engineering work, to be sure. But it's not like this is, breaking into new fields of physics or something. This is just engineering. Before we had ships that are as big as the ship we had now, we had ships half that size, and before that, we now have ships that sail the ocean that are 200,000 tons displacement. Well, about 100 years ago, or in 1905, the largest ship in the world, the HMS Dreadnought, was about 20,000 tons. So that was a spectacular ship. The Titanic, if you had it today, it would just be one of the smaller cruise ships that you see in the harbor. In its day, it was the largest. Well, we need to create larger landing systems, but this is just engineering. It's not a fundamental problem.
Okay, that's good to hear too. And what people ask me when I talk about these things, let's say we did this. We are taking payload to Mars. We figured everything out, and we are sending our humans there. They can land. Great. What are they looking for? What is it that a human being looks for on Mars that, say, a rover can't?
Well, for one thing, the number one science issue on Mars concerns the question of life. So, first of all, to do fossil hunting, Perseverance is going to try to do some fossil hunting, and it has a chance. It's landed in a good place. It has a microscope it can use for, looking for microfossils. But, the Perseverance rover will move about 200 meters in a day. A human astronaut could move 200 meters in a couple of minutes. And not only that, turning his or her head take the equivalent of millions of high-resolution photographs. A person could climb over much rougher terrain than Perseverance will be able to do. A person can dig, which Perseverance cannot do. And a person can do all sorts of complicated things, like carefully splitting open fossil shales by their edges to see what is inside them. So humans are much better fossil hunters than rovers. I live here in Colorado, and this place is famous for its dinosaur fossils. Some of the most famous early dinosaur finds, the Tyrannosaurus rex, the Triceratops, the Brontosaurus, they're all found actually within a few miles from where I'm sitting right now, Morrison, Colorado. And but yet you could land 100 Perseverance rovers in the Rocky Mountains and you'd never find a dinosaur fossil. Okay? Yeah. I actually once did find a dinosaur fossil in Utah, and I found it in a place that no rover could even have gotten to. Although, it wasn't heroic to go there. I had to climb down 2 meters into a narrow little canyon, but that no rover could do that.
Yeah, humans can go into the crevices and stuff too, I guess.
And by the way, I did that during a Mars Society mission simulation. I was wearing a spacesuit.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
That's right. And we reported that find to the federal authorities, and they put it in the record. And about 8 years later, professional paleontologists contacted them and said, did anyone find any dinosaur fossils around there? And they said, yeah, the Mars people did. Here's the GPS location. They went there and they dug it out. And it's now one of the largest dinosaur fossil collections in North America.
Wow.
Yeah. But rovers couldn't have done it. Rovers couldn't have gotten into that canyon. Rovers wouldn't have seen the rock.
It's actually very... Oh, yeah. Sorry. Continue.
No, that's my point.
I mean, it's very scary to think that, Perseverance might be out there looking for fossils and signs of life, and it might be there, but it might never be able to find it just because of its capabilities.
Well, it's limited. But here's the thing. Even if Perseverance does, and it can, I'm not ruling it out, find some fossils on the surface, that only opens up the scientific investigation.
Oh, yeah.
Because the real issue is, what was Martian life like? Was it like Earth life? Did it use DNA and RNA? Or did it use a different alphabet of genetic information? All Earth life uses DNA and RNA. We all use the same alphabet. It's like, here Americans and Europeans, most of them anyway, use the Latin alphabet. In fact, Turkey, I understand, now have adopted the Latin alphabet. Okay, and previous to that, you might have used the Arabic alphabet, which actually has a common origin with the Latin alphabet in the Phoenician alphabet. But the Chinese use a totally different alphabet. It has nothing in common with any Western alphabet. It doesn't work on the same set of principles at all. But it can do the same thing, which is you can write books in it. Okay. Yeah. Now, Martian life, does it use the same alphabet? Does it use the same sort of alphabet? Or does it use a completely different information system altogether? Well, to find that out, you got to find living examples. Well, where is that? Not on the Martian surface. It's underground. If there was life on the Martian surface when Mars was warm and wet, that life would have retreated with the water, and it will still be underground now. And you need to send people to set up drilling rigs to drill, to bring up samples of that water and look at the life and examine it, subject to biochemical testing and all that. And then you could really learn something. So it's possible Perseverance might find fossils, although it's certainly possible that it would miss them if they're there. But even if it does find them, the more detailed investigation that really gets to the truth of the matter can only be done by people.
Yeah, rovers seem to do the initial job for us, and eventually humans will complete it, it looks like. Have you been thinking about the human aspect of this project? I mean, the technology we seem to be able to do from the beginning to end. Landing, we can take the payload, send it there, land it perfect. We're talking about isolation. 6 months of isolation on the way there, and 1.5 years on the Mars soil. We're not planning
1.5 years on the Martian surface. Yes, 6 months there, 1.5 years. 6 months to get there, 1.5 years there, 6 months to come home.
Do you believe when they say, human psychology is a big problem with this? You're sticking 4 people together.
Plenty of people have done tougher things than that.
We can handle it, you say.
Oh, yeah. Plenty of, whaling voyages used to be 3 years away from home. My father was in World War II. He was away from home for 3 years. I mean, and frankly, in a potentially much more dangerous situation than a Mars mission. And not just him, but millions of other men, ordinary men, chosen just by, here it is, you're drafted. And they did it. Whereas, Anne Frank and her family were in an attic for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. With Nazis running around, with listening devices hunting for them. They didn't go crazy. Okay, and those are just ordinary people chosen by circumstances. An astronaut crew is going to be a pit crew. the toughest and most resilient people you can find. They're not going to have a problem with this.
So, okay, that's good because it comes a lot. They'll just go crazy or something if they are stuck inside. Yeah.
Now, human factors research is of interest, not because of this dramatic thing, or will everyone go crazy? It's how do we maintain team spirit so as to have an efficient crew that works together well? Because to the extent that the crew becomes grumpy and unhappy, they won't work together well. But this is not a question of can we find people who won't go crazy when they're away from home for 2.5 years.
Yeah, that can be done. And how about oxygen and water? Like, how do we get them that?
Well, we have equipment now that can recycle oxygen and water.
And that will be part of the payload that we send to Mars?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
And once we're on Mars, we get plenty of additional water.
And from
Martian water.
Directly from the Martian soil. Yeah, okay. And also another big problem is the food. Like we know astronauts use little packages. We can't sustain them with that for a long time. So they'll have to do some farming there. Will it be possible?
Well, no. On exploration missions, we can bring our food. And I don't recommend bringing all the food in meals ready to eat squeeze bottles. Okay. I think we should bring food and cook it. Now that's readily doable on the surface. You have gravity and you can cook just as you can on Earth. In transit, if you want to cook, you need to have artificial gravity. And this is a good idea because it can be provided by rotating the spacecraft. And it prevents the deterioration of the health of astronauts due to zero gravity deconditioning of muscles.
Which you say is even worse than the radiation. The radiation isn't actually a big problem.
No, the radiation is exotic, and so people fixate on it. But actually, no, really.
That's true, yeah.
The radiation dose you get by going to Mars represents about a 1% risk of getting cancer at some point later in your life. That compares to the cancer risk of smoking, which is about 20%. So, it's actually a small risk compared to the flight risk, that is of a flight crashing or something. Now, and in fact, we have not observed any radiological health effects among astronauts or cosmonauts, and some of them have been in space on the space station or Mir long enough to get the same radiation dose they would have gotten going to Mars and back. None of them have been affected. Now, what we have seen in terms of space health effects are a deterioration of muscle and bone due to zero gravity. And that can be prevented either by a very vigorous exercise program or by rotating the spacecraft. And for the healthiest astronauts, you want to rotate the spacecraft and have an exercise program. And that's what we should do.
How about on Mars? How will we...
On Mars, you have gravity, and you can also have an exercise program. But if you're hiking around in a spacesuit, you're going to get some exercise.
For sure, yeah. And I'm just going to wrap up here. I don't want to keep you for too long, but we have some questions that we collected from our supporters and audience. And one of them, Jihan Ikiji, wanted me to ask you about the challenge aspect of it, because when we talk about like Mars missions, it's more about like technology, astronauts and engineers and stuff, but you mention medical researchers in there too, and this particular supporter is in medical field. How do you think they will play a role in this bigger picture?
Well, there's two different aspects. There's what medical researchers will do for the Mars mission and what Mars missions will do for medical researchers.
Exactly.
Okay, I mean, certainly we want to have the best health for the astronauts, and we want to create tools and procedures that will allow the astronauts to deal with health emergencies, and the development of such technologies will have plenty of benefit for Earth. But the other thing is this, is you see, look, you take this epidemic right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, while the governments have not done terribly well in responding to it, the scientific community has done extremely well. That is, vaccines for dealing with COVID were developed as quickly as within days in January 2020, as the regulators have held it up and done all kinds of stupid things. But the scientists have done incredible things. But where'd those scientists come from? They came from little boys and girls who got interested in science. Okay. That is where scientists come from. Okay. Scientists come from exciting children about science. Okay. That's where scientists, and that's where science comes from. And to create that intellectual capital, there's no more powerful tool than something like this. Look, youth loves adventure. That is the spirit of youth. And a Humans to Mars program would make science the great adventure. Not football, not war. Science, the great adventure. Okay? And, we're not finding the cure to COVID on the space station, but you can bet your bottom dollar that the teams who are finding these cures include a lot of people who became scientists because they were excited about science by space.
See, this is the energy I'm talking about. You captivate when you're so excited about this, and this is what we're talking about. This will excite the next generation. Just this will be enough to create that capital you're talking about, let alone all the actual benefits that we'll get, like physical tools and technologies. So I completely agree with you on this. And there's another question that is a little bit ahead of our where we are right now. Furkan Demirel asked, do you think we will be able to take pets to Mars? Not humans, but pets and other animals that we might use, and maybe not even animals, like plants and such. Do you think that should be a part of our plan, both psychological aspects of it and some useful parts to it?
Of course. That is, we are going to Mars, and we're going to bring with us our friends from the community of life. And that will certainly include plants and domesticated animals, and not just those for food like chickens, but also those for companionship like dogs. Dogs helped us win this planet. Before we domesticated dogs, we were helpless against giant predators. Dogs gave us our early warning system, and dogs helped protect us from famine by giving us greatly improved hunting abilities. Okay, they've been our friends for 20,000 years, and we should not leave them behind.
That's for sure. And do you think this will branch out our evolutionary tree? This Mars, will we be isolated enough to maybe evolve in a different direction, or will there be enough mixing?
Well, look, first there will be cultural differentiation.
For sure.
Because that can happen very fast. But then eventually there will be biological. When organisms move into a new environment that has different optimal conditions, they change. That's how it works. And if we go to Mars, I mean, even if we terraform Mars, it will always be a different place than Earth. It will always have lower gravity, for example. And so the current optimal bone structure and so forth that we have, it will no longer be the optimal. We'll probably want to be taller and thinner, more lightly built. But in other words, each condition has its own optimum design at Mars. So we will evolve differently. And then when we go to the stars, and many different kinds of planets. Maybe there'll be planets that have heavier gravity. Who knows? Okay. We will evolve. And also, of course, as people gain knowledge of biology, some people are in favor of genetic engineering to alter the genome and a people, and others are very much against it. Well, I think there'll probably be some cultures that like the idea and some that do not like the idea, and they will therefore evolve in different directions.
That is
so the human family is going to become much more diverse.
Yeah, and I bet as you said, now that we're more able to change the genes, maybe that will help us with our missions too, by giving, say, radiation resistance. And do you think they should be used in these projects?
Well, certainly. Well, look, I think changing genes to resist cancer in general is something that medicine is very interested in, and it will help the Mars mission. And to the extent that the Mars mission can push things in that direction, that will help everyone else from avoiding cancer.
Yeah, so we should see this in our missions too. Now, to finalize my questions, I want to ask quick questions to you. When I watch your speeches, you take a very scientific, very interesting, very captivating position where you just give the facts and what we can find in Mars, and if we find life, what it means. If we don't find life, what does it mean? It's not a loss. It will just give us a different perspective, maybe. But I want to ask you what you think that we will find instead of the possibilities. So, first of all, do you think life can appear in Earth-like conditions, at least through, say, abiogenesis or chemical evolution from non-life?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
Okay. And do you think there is at least microbial life outside the Earth?
Oh, absolutely. As above, so below. I think we're living in a living universe. And,
okay, that's so good to hear.
And I think there's wonders waiting to be discovered, and we just have to go and find them.
Oh, man, that's very exciting. How about, do you think there is intelligent life outside the Earth?
Certainly.
Okay.
Because the whole history of life on Earth is one of evolution, from simpler forms to more complex forms with greater capacities for activity and intelligence, and in fact, ever more rapid evolution. And I see no reason to believe that that does not occur elsewhere.
Okay. Now, I know it's getting a little bit more questionable, but do you think that intelligent life has ever communicated, contacted, or visited the Earth?
No, I don't think so. I think they're out there, but I don't think they're here.
And do you think we will be able to communicate with them, given the vastness of space, at least?
Eventually, yeah. I think probably the way we'll find extraterrestrial civilizations, if you want to know, is through astronomy. That is, we will actually soon have the ability to detect oxygen in the atmosphere of planets around other stars. And if there's oxygen there, it means life is there. It means intelligence, it means life. But it means substantial amounts of life, a flourishing biosphere comparable to the Earth. Okay, now, so here's the thing. Let's say we find that 1 out of 100 stars has such a planet, as a statistical average. But we find in one particular region of space that every star has a planet like that, or almost every star. Instead of it being 1 in 100, it's 1 out of every 2. Okay? Yeah. Well, that means that there's a civilization there that's terraforming planets.
Oh, that's exciting to hear too. And so what is next after Mars? Because Mars, as we said, is a destination. What is the second step, do you see?
Well, the asteroids. I would say it's the asteroids.
Not a moon?
Well, yeah, with the moon too, sure. But the moon,
no, not the moon, but like Europa or other moons of other planets.
Well, our moon, sure. And Callisto, Ganymede. I don't know about Europa. It's right in the middle of Jupiter's radiation belts. It's kind of tough. But the other two, yeah. And but also, you see, here's the thing. Let's stick with Mars for a minute. Mars, what are the energy resources of Mars? Well, you can make fuels on Mars, but you got to bring the energy to do it. Solar energy is only 40% as strong as Earth, and solar energy here isn't that great as a power source. Hydroelectric power we're not going to have till we terraform the place. So, and the air is too thin to get much out of wind. So that leaves nuclear. Well, nuclear fission requires a rather complex industrial base of refining uranium from minerals. But fusion, you have a fusion reactor, the fuel is deuterium, which it's found in all water. And in fact, on Martian water, it's 6 times as common as it is on Earth. And so the Martians are going to have a tremendous incentive to want to develop fusion power. Tremendous incentive. Okay. And necessity is the mother of invention. Okay. And I think, why haven't we developed fusion power already? All these other ways to make power on Earth. The Martians, they're going to want this. They're going to make it happen. Now, that's going to tremendously benefit the Earth. Okay, because they will develop fusion and then we'll have it too. But fusion power is not just a way to make electricity. It's also a way to power rockets. And in fact, a fusion rocket could get up to 10% the speed of light. So now you're talking about a capability for interstellar travel. So from Mars to the stars. That's how this is going to go.
And that's a perfect summary. And it's like a feedback loop. And that's what you're talking about. Getting there is just the first step. Just think about what it will come next. And one last question to you, Dr. Zubrin. What is next for you? What do you want to accomplish in your lifetime?
I want to help make humans to Mars a reality. So I'm going to continue my work. I'm doing technology work on technologies for creating resources on Mars. So I participate directly that way. But also simply talking to people like I'm talking to you right now. Because we need more Elon Musks.
That is for sure.
We need an army of Musks. Okay? Because one isn't enough. We need more creative forces at work. And if we get enough of them, we cannot be stopped. Nothing can idea his time has come.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I will contact you about the translation. Maybe I can help you with that, and it would open up tremendous viewpoints for the people of Turkey. And once again, thank you so much for your energy and for being with us today.
All right. You're most welcome. All right.
See you later.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye. All right. That was it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Dr. Zubrin has been a huge inspiration for me in terms of space exploration. And I hope he could, show you just a little bit of that today. I strongly recommend you read his books as well, and also watch his other interviews and other presentations. You can see the details of the plan, which makes it much more obvious what the next steps will be. And our month of evolution will continue on the 2nd of March. We will be with Çağan Şekercioğlu. We'll be talking about bioecology, and we hope to see you there as well. See you later.